We're diving into a really, really disturbing story out in New York City.
Yeah, this one.
This one is rough.
It's hard to hear about.
It really is. A 57-year-old woman named Debrina Kawam, she was set on fire while she was sleeping on the subway.
Just awful.
Yeah. And so we're going to take a look at the details of the case, looking at news reports, official statements, all that, trying to figure out, like, what exactly happened here.
Yeah.
And what this means for a city like New York.
What does this say about the city
Exactly.
when something like this can happen?
Yeah. So we don't know a whole lot about Debrina Kawam, but we know that she was from Toms River, New Jersey. And we know that she'd actually spent some time in New York City's homeless shelter system before this happened.
Wow.
And so this raises some questions like, how many other people are using the subway as a place to sleep,
Right.
What does that say about the support systems that are supposed to be in place?
You think about a city like New York, you would hope that there would be some kind of a safety net for people.
Right. And it kind of makes you wonder if those support systems are really working, if people are ending up having to sleep on the subway.
Exactly.
So let's rewind back to that night, December 22nd, Coney Island Station. The train was stopped late at night.
Oh, wow.
And this is where it gets really, really rough.
Yeah.
A 33-year-old man named Sebastian Zapeta, he allegedly poured accelerant on Debrina Kawam while she was sleeping.
Oh, my God.
Set her on fire.
Just unbelievable.
And then reportedly just sat there and watched it, and just she was pronounced dead right there at the scene.
It's such a sense of, like, helplessness in that moment. Like, there's nothing anyone could have done.
Right, and just the cruelty is just astounding. And the fact that it happened on a subway.
Right, a public space.
Yeah, a place where, you're surrounded by people. In theory, you should feel safe,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about a city like New York. You think you're safe because you're constantly surrounded by other people.
Right.
But clearly that wasn't the case here.
Yeah, so in the middle of all this horror, there's a little bit of, I don't want to say good news, but positive news.
Right.
The police acted really quickly.
Thank goodness.
They used surveillance footage.
Oh, good.
And they got a tip from some high school students who saw something and said something.
Wow, that's great.
And because of that, they were able to arrest Zapeta within hours.
Wow, so at least there was a quick resolution to the investigation, at least.
Exactly. So we know Zapeta's in prison right now. He's awaiting trial, and he's facing charges of murder and arson.
Right.
We also know that he's originally from Guatemala.
Okay.
And that he entered the U.S. illegally, according to federal authorities.
Okay.
And so, as the legal process moves forward, it makes you wonder, like, what are the legal things that they're going to have to consider with a case as messed up as this one?
Well, you have to think about, what kind of defense can even be mounted in a situation like this. It's a murder charge, and it sounds like there was a lot of evidence.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see what his lawyer does.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole other aspect of it, which is that he's not from the United States.
Right.
So that will definitely come into play.
Right. And the public perception.
Exactly.
And how people are going to react to that and how that's going to play into everything.
It's going to be hard to separate the facts of the case from,
Right.
the immigration issue and the homelessness issue and all of that.
Absolutely. And both the Brooklyn District Attorney, Eric Gonzalez, and Mayor Adams, they both made some pretty strong statements.
Oh, really?
After the attack, Gonzalez called it a malicious deed. He really focused on how vulnerable Debrina Kawam was.
Of course.
And then Adams talked about how this affects, all New Yorkers.
Oh, yeah. Their sense of safety.
Right. Everyone feels a little less safe now.
Oh, absolutely.
And he connected it back to, the bigger picture of homelessness in the city.
Right.
So what do you think about that? I mean, obviously this is just one awful incident, but...
Right, but it speaks to a larger problem.
Yeah. What do you think is the takeaway here?
Well, I think the mayor is right about this case forces us to really look at homelessness in our cities. Are we providing enough housing? What about mental health services? Are we creating communities where everyone feels safe and supported, even the people who are really struggling?
Right. And it really makes you think about how vulnerable people are when they're living on the streets and how random violence can be,
Absolutely.
And it's good to see that law enforcement was able to act quickly in this case. But
right, but it's still so sad.
Yeah, it's still so sad.
Yeah, it's a tragedy.
Yeah, so we've uncovered a lot here. It's a lot to process. I mean, we've seen how vulnerable people living on the streets can be. We've seen how random violence can be. And we've also seen how law enforcement can act really fast when they need to.
Yeah, and it leaves us with a really important question.
Yeah,
What is our responsibility as a society
right.
to take care of each other,
Hmm.
especially the people who are going through tough times? How do we make a city, how do we make a country that's safe and supportive for absolutely everyone?
Yeah, that's a question that's worth thinking about.
For sure.
And it's easy to just turn away from these really hard situations, but I think this deep dive has shown us that sometimes we got to face the hard stuff
Yeah.
because that's how we learn and grow.
Yeah, sometimes the most important things are the things that make us uncomfortable,
That
that
is
force
right.
us to look in the mirror.
Absolutely.